and welcome to Default Assault, where we take on everything by default. I'm your host, Demosthenes, and today you're going to get the privilege of watching three grown-ass men talk about Sleeping Beauty. Welcome back, Kyle. How's it going?
I find an irony that we three grown-ass men are going to try to be woke by talking about Sleeping Beauty. I'm just saying.
Oh, Christ. And now we're demonetized from YouTube. Thank you.
Oh, wrong movie. Sorry.
Well, welcome back yet again. TJ, how's it going?
I'm doing well, man. There's nothing more cool than hearing voices like ours talk about Sleeping Beauty, man. This is going to be tight.
This week marks the 60th anniversary of the film. The legacy of this film is far beyond having one of the most notable Disney villains in Maleficent or being the namesake castle of the original Disneyland park. It stands as one of the most beautifully animated films ever made. Despite the fact that it wasn't a big success at the time, has stood the test of time. In a way, it has become kind of a sleeper hit. Pun
really
somewhat intended. But I'm curious, had you guys seen Sleeping Beauty before this week?
Yeah, absolutely. This is an essential part of my childhood, man. I mean, this is something that while I'm not old enough to have seen it in the theater in 1959. What I can tell you, it was on the Disney Channel an awful lot on cable when that became a newer thing, around the 80s, at least from my perspective. It could have been there for a while longer. I don't know. That's just when I was engaged with it. But watched that many times on there, and was really kind of, by watching my dad respond to the movie, enlightened to certain elements of what responsibility is versus what it isn't. And I'm sure we'll talk about that as we break down some of the characters later. But I didn't know I was witnessing the marvel that was Maleficent, or any of the great things that are carried away from that movie, whether it be Flora, Fauna, Merryweather, Princess Aurora herself, however you want to play it.
Seeing it it took me back. I didn't know that it was quite as old as the picture you painted, man. But
right.
It makes sense. And we actually watched it, with the kids today, and they said, Daddy, this is a new old movie.
Nice. Where it really popped for me was when she was singing with the animals in the forest and Prince Philip and all that was really crazy.
Well, it's kind of funny because when I was a kid growing up, I saw this at a particularly early age. I mean, this was, as a young boy, this was the one princess movie that I was allowed to like. Because I had dragons, the prince actually does some. I mean, you look back, the other two main fairy tale movies from Disney's era, Snow White, the prince shows up, sings one song, and that's the only goddamn thing that he does. And then Cinderella, the prince doesn't even go out and try to find her with the shoe. He sends his lackeys to do it. This is the first time that a prince actually had something to do and actually
for Lord Farquaad. I mean, what's so bad about that?
So I was saying, this is the first time that a prince actually had a much more active role in the plot. And by God, that dragon sequence, has there been a better dragon on screen than in this film? And don't give me Game of Thrones, TV, whatever. But seriously, in a motion picture, this is... there might be a couple out there that might compete. Barely, I would say. This is probably the best motion picture dragon I've ever seen.
I'll say this. It wasn't voiced by Sean Connery, so that should be something that the bar could have been raised higher on.
All right, I'm talking more so the look and feel of the dragon.
It's the bar's high, man. I need some more time to break that down. It's not like dragons are something that are rare in film, but it's damn awesome, no question. It's iconic. Listen, man, when they're talking about you being a centerpiece to a theme park central to Disney villains, you did some shiz right. That's a fact.
She is the flagship Disney villain. She is the one that everyone wants to emulate. Hell, when they did the Disney reboot or remake or whatever, the live action they've been doing recently, Maleficent was one of the ones that kicked it off, a retelling from her perspective. So this is a character that has, at least the Disney version specifically, has outgrown the origins from the fairy tale. Has really become its own thing. Do you think, after watching this film, that she is deserving of all the glory that she's gotten, Kyle?
She is, but what I would contend is, before we crown her anything like, I mean, she's iconic. Is she the most powerful? And to that, I would give an emphatic no. But she's definitely up on the list. All I can tell you is we have the opportunity somewhere in Disney lore to see what happens when you mix Maleficent with somebody with truly evil intentions. Say like, I don't know, God, who's that guy from the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Demos?
Frollo.
Oh, Frollo, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So, what happens when Frollo gets Maleficent's power? Oh, you get frickin' Jafar. Okay, so yeah, that.
Or you literally get some hellfire.
I mean, yeah, right, because that was a great pun that had to be made. Anyways,
I'm here to serve anytime.
Yeah, well, I wish you served like Kevin Kline rather than Frollo. Anyways,
I mean, obviously with the live action that they just did with Angelina, I think it showed some of the depth to that character. Watching Sleeping Beauty, you don't know as to why she, you don't know right away why she's coming in wrecking shop. But Maleficent's doing so well. I found out today they're doing a Maleficent 2 scheduled to release in 2020. I mean,
why not?
There's some depth to this character. And I like it. As far as powers are concerned, she can transform into anything, transform that bird into anything. Cruella de Vil just likes to kill dogs. Maleficent, she's pretty gangster.
Yeah, Cruella de Vil likes to kill dogs, and hey, listen, Gaston likes to look good and hunt things, and inspire the animated version of the Me Too movement. But he ain't nothing.
Well, at the same time, these characters, if you take the powers aside, if you take a look at Maleficent, or you take a look at Cruella, these are two characters that relish being who they are. They're evil, they know it, and they enjoy it. It's something that we don't really see as much in villains nowadays. How most animated films nowadays have fallen to the trope of the surprise villain that you can see coming from a mile away in most cases. I think my biggest issue with Sleeping Beauty is that it shouldn't be called Sleeping Beauty, because the real main characters of this film are the freaking fairies.
Hey, yeah. I'm with you. If you can't use magic, you can just suck a whole big bag of D's, basically.
This movie is fairy versus fairy. You got between your villain and the three main fairies, who also are convenient in setting up all the different plot holes that this film has. Couldn't they wait like a week after the goddamn birthday? They waited out in the damn forest for a decade. Can't they wait an extra couple of days? Yes, we wouldn't have a movie. I get it. But
even aside from that, the idea was to have her somewhere in seclusion, so Maleficent couldn't just lock her in a tower or something and then deliver or something like that.
Oh, if you go by the reboot, Maleficent knew where she was the whole time. It was just a misunderstood motherly figure.
Did not see that movie. Now much less interested in doing so.
No, dude, there's so much more backstory to it. Like, Maleficent isn't just pissed off for the sake of being pissed off.
I honestly hated Maleficent. I'll straight up say I absolutely despise. I despise that movie, and the fact that I wasn't against the idea of casting Angelina Jolie. I actually didn't think she was a bad. I didn't think she was a bad fit for
she
it.
looked smart, yeah.
Yeah. But the stuff that they did with the plot was just. This film already has enough holes, and for a character that actually falls asleep by pricking her own finger was. I guess they took that to heart because the remake was full of pricks. But The side characters being the real main characters in Sleeping Beauty, this is far more egregious than in many of the other Disney films from beforehand, where the supporting cast really upstages the heroes. I mean, I would make the argument that the one character that has the only true character arc in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs is Grumpy. They should have called it Grumpy and the untanned housebreaker.
I'm glad you mentioned that, bro, because I think the one who's truly the star of Sleeping Beauty is Merryweather. Like, we got to get these two together, dude. Two angry people unite. They'd make a hell of a couple, and they'd be happier, ironically, through the whole ordeal, man.
We're gonna fanship Merryweather and Grumpy.
Nice.
That is hilarious by default.
If you look at what the film is, the film was really built around, I mean, it's building up the side characters. I mean, their whole job was to go incognito to take care of Aurora. So, you know, there's this time that passes, you know, she goes from being a baby to being this 24-year-old that's supposed to pass off as 16. You know, it works. You know, it's the animation. I guess, you know, they wanted to draw her mature.
Well, but be fair though, like Fauna magically as a baby induces her what can only be perceived to as from the scientific level performance enhancing drugs. So there's a reason why she's mature. It's magically enhanced, bruh.
One of my biggest annoyances, even when I was a kid, this bothered me, was when the fairies tell Philip, they build him up. They said, only you can defeat Maleficent. We cannot be involved. And yet for the rest of the goddamn film, that's the only thing they do. They save his ass at every single turn, take down all the guys going after him, the little monsters, and at the very end, they're the ones that even instruct the sword to actually hit Maleficent. What the hell? The prince is nothing more than an angular-faced puppet.
I did actually notice that as a kid as well, Demos. You make a fantastic point here. I got nothing else for you.
The fairies, they knew. They're the stars. They told Philip, hey, look, we can't help you. And then they did everything anyway because it was their job to make sure that Aurora got everything that she wanted.
Well, I mean, but how is that any different than the whole way that they got freaking Briar Rose, a.k.a. Aurora, discovered in the first damn place, gentlemen? Like, no magic, no magic. Oh, well, we got to do a birthday party. F it. Get the damn wands out, right? Okay? This is what they do.
But see, hold up, bro. The magic, them using the magic for the birthday wasn't the problem. It was them being douchebags and throwing fire at each other and going back and forth about the color of that dress. That's what got them in trouble. They would have been fine.
Oh, but you're right. You're right. But what's the catalyst? If they kept the damn wands in the cellar and just baked the damn cake, we ain't got no damn wand exchange. Ain't no firefights like something between, friggin' Cyclops and Havoc. Doesn't happen.
Okay, so we've established that these are the real leads of this film. Are they effective leads?
So
if you think about it, halfway through the film, you hear Aurora's last line of dialogue, and the prince doesn't even after he leaves the castle, he doesn't have a single line for the rest of the film. From the moment he leaves to when he gets captured and when he faces Maleficent with a gag in his mouth, for the rest of the film, the last 20-30 minutes of this film, he doesn't say another line too. In fact, maybe with the exception of Bambi or Dumbo, this is the one Disney film where the lead characters have the least amount of freaking lines. And before the trolls jump on us for saying this, yes, we realize that when she falls asleep, she can't talk. But it doesn't mean that in more than half of the scenes that she's in, she still doesn't talk.
I mean, right.
It doesn't explain Philip not speaking for the last 25 minutes of the film.
And to be honest, I liked his dad better than I liked Philip. I got to tell you.
Oh, he has a drinking song, so that usually helps.
A drinking song, and like if you ever watch like one of these things with the drinking song, and like Stefan and he get into like a silly argument that it goes away quickly, and then when they're laughing, and Stefan puts the blade away, and like he sheathes the fish. Okay, that's funny. I don't care who you are. Dude walking around thinks he has a damn marlin as a sword in his belt. Okay, listen. Anyways, no, but they make good characters. They make a good focal point to the extent that even though they have magic powers, they have a lot of things that humans do, good intentions and a butt ton of flaws. Okay, hey, oh my God, we had one job and we blew it. Well, how do we fix this? It. Put the kingdom to sleep. Okay, what? Like,
Right.
what a politician would do, kids. You know what I'm saying?
Nobody knows anything because everybody is asleep. That is the perfect crime. Like, it's like nobody knows anything. Nothing went wrong. I didn't make a mistake because everybody is asleep. That's perfect.
But there's no security cameras too. That's why it works.
But if there's one thing that really does, at least to me, stand out about this film is the animation. You pause this movie at any scene and you've got a painting that you can put on your wall. The backgrounds are detailed beyond anything that Disney had done since Bambi. I mean, the entire film has a medieval Renaissance-inspired angular look. Even the trees, even the bark itself has angular details to it. It is a masterpiece of animation, and yet, in a strange way, it's so detailed and so flawless that I think the only negative thing I can say about it is it comes off as rather cold at times. Otherwise, I think it's a masterpiece of animation.
I can see that point. It's not your more warmer. Like, I can look at a couple of the other Disney princesses and say that those films, and even the older stuff, talking Snow White, just in her interactions with people, I mean, it seems like a warmer film. But to the point, the pictures, you are absolutely right. You can pause it at almost any point, and between the colors and just the sharp edges and how they draw the dragon, like, it all pops, man. So I'm 100% agreeing with you.
You know, you mentioned that coldness point, Demos, and first of all, I want to go back real quick to your kid's observation, TJ, about it, a new looking old movie, or however it was that it was said. I was saying to Demos in pre-production for this episode, I forgot this movie was this bleeping old, because it sure doesn't look like it. And if that isn't a tribute to the detail of the animation in and of itself, well, hey, I don't know what else would be. But you mentioned the coldness too, and I think this concept is something I always really, I thought it played better than it hurt things, especially when I mentioned the aforementioned sequence where the fairies put the kingdom to sleep. That coldness that you mentioned helps make it a thing once everybody's down.
It really felt like the animators fell in love with their work here. Maybe sometimes to the detriment of the film, because those backgrounds, as beautiful as they are, they can be distracting, especially due to the blandness of the lead characters.
I like your points, but I'll put it this way. And another thing I'm going to add in is the whole make it blue, make it pink thing. Like, there was a topic of debate when I was less than 10 in House Nash, and I found myself flip-flopping like a politician whose donors kept changing. I could never decide if I liked the blue or the pink better.
I'm Team Blue all the way. Team Merriweather. Well, I'm glad that you brought that up, because Sleeping Beauty is, in many ways, it is the last of the fairy tale movies that Disney did, and it was the last one that the Disney Pictures did until The Little Mermaid 30 years later. And here we are 30 years after that. But the Sleeping Beauty in many ways is a film that has a lot of leftover ideas and concepts from the previous two fairy tale films of Snow White and Cinderella. The Dancing in the Clouds was originally planned for Cinderella. The entire prince subplot with him getting captured by the villain and having to escape, that's straight out of all the deleted concept art for Snow White. This, in many ways, was the culmination of everything that Disney began. And in many ways, he never made another film during his lifetime that really achieved the height that this film did.
I'm not surprised at all. It definitely does look like the culmination of a lot of stuff, because the animation is completely different from what was coming prior to that. Like, Cinderella didn't look like, Maleficent. It still had that little bit of goofiness to it with regards to the mice and helping out, and then with Snow White, you had some sharp edges here and there, but you still had the seven dwarves, so it was still kind of kiddie, whereas this one really did kind of tie it was I'm not going to say the more mature of them. I mean, because that just sounds weird, but I mean, it looks like it takes itself seriously.
It definitely does. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about you getting dragons stabbed in the neck. You're talking about kids that might die or whatever on the 16th. And then the only way you can save them is for them to be in a sleep by getting pricked by a spinning wheel. I mean, dude, there's some adult shiz going on there. I can definitely see that. And I'll leave that at that. I had another point I want to make, but I lost it.
I think that's a good point, TJ. In many ways, this almost like Fantasia is a film that the main focus seems to be more so on the arts. And when you focus on something like that, I think almost, and when you do it right, at the very least, almost by default, you end up with something that's a little bit more layered, or something that is that could be. I agree with you. I'm not sure if mature is the right word, but it definitely gets the concept of what we're trying to get across.
Perhaps the new business model for Disney is to fit something in the budget to prepare for a huge project to be relatively mediocre, and then spin off a bunch of other teams, because that's where the goal seems to be coming from.
So the big question of the evening is Sleeping Beauty required viewing?
Big part of childhood. We've talked about that. That's awesome. I like that, the point that you made, Demos, because I hadn't even thought about it, but it's absolutely true. Pausing this movie at any point, you got artwork. So you can, put Sleeping Beauty on, pause it at any point, invite some people over, and they'll think that you have the most creative artwork in the world on your television. But that alone doesn't make it required viewing. It is recommended. I enjoy watching it with the kids and answering questions today, but it's not something that I think that you necessarily have to watch to be able to roll with me and the movie watching crew.
Listen, we can qualify this in many different ways, my man. Like, if you are an animation student, historian, whatever have you, of course you have to see this movie. If you are somebody who claims yourself a classic Disney purist, as if being a purist is a horrible thing according to some people, that is a movie for you that is required viewing. If you're in a place where you have to sample every bit of fantasy fiction out there depicting some sort of medieval, Shrek and this are both required reading for you. However, friends, this is not required viewing in the great genre of movies. Hey, listen, let's be honest. My 4-year-old's probably still going to see it. Oh, wait, I'm lying. She already has. But I would not have put that on the list of things that I have to show her to be a good parent.
Ditto. I think that you laid it out pretty well. And it kind of hurts because, like I said before, as an artistic achievement alone, it's highly recommended. If you take a step back and look at it from that perspective, this film is amongst the best animated films ever made. From an artistic achievement, it is one of the very best. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think of Sleeping Beauty? Can you believe that it's 60 years old? Have you seen it in widescreen? Let us know in the comments below what you thought of the film. Let us know what other Disney films you'd like to see us 3 grown men cover. And hit us up in the comments below.
Manly men were men in tights. Yes.
Tights.
Where can we find you?
Of course, you can find me on Twitter at the SOTG. Find me on Instagram as the same, the SOTG. Find me on Facebook as the Student of the Game. Find my sports musing on sportsmediapass.com and check out my writings about the Miami Dolphins on the Dolphins Wire of USA Today and Dinner Time. Boom.
TJ, always a pleasure. Where can we find you?
Well, if you're looking for me, I'm not that hard to find, folks. TOKEO Jay on Twitter, same thing on Snapchat. He already told you, man, the dinner bell's going, so dinner time is always fun. And this is where I be if you want to see this face, man. Thanks for having me, brother. God bless.
Awesome. Always a pleasure. And of course, you can find me at hilaritybydefault.com. Fun stuff every week. On Twitter at defaulthilarity. And on Facebook and Instagram, Hilarity by Default. And no, we are not done talking Disney. The one episode that Kyle is looking forward to the most. We're going to be celebrating the 75th anniversary of The Three Caballeros later
Correct.
on this year. You can see the pure enjoyment on his face. Make sure to stay tuned for that right here, where life is hilarious by default.